The lobby of St. Andrew's Medical Center glittered like a cathedral of glass and chrome. Behind the front desk, nurses moved with machine precision. Wealthy donors' portraits lined the marble hallway. The air smelled of antiseptic and power. Dr. Adrian Cole strode through the corridor, white coat fluttering like a flag of authority. At 42, he was the hospital's youngest head cardiothoracic surgeon, a man whose confidence could slice through silence sharper than a scalpel. His badge, polished, gold-edged, engraved chief surgeon, caught the fluorescent light every few steps. "Morning, Dr. Cole," said a nurse. "Morning," he replied without slowing. "Clear my 2 p.m. consult. I'm not wasting an hour on charity evaluations again." Adrian's world was efficiency, precision, results. Compassion slowed him down, and slowing down meant losing control. At the ER entrance, Maya Lopez, a young nurse on her first year's rotation, leaned over a gurney. A man in his late 50s held a teenage girl in his arms. The girl's lips were blue, her breath shallow. "Please," the man begged. "She can't breathe. It's all I have." "Sir, we'll help," Maya said. "What's her name?" "Lily Reed." The man's clothes were worn, boots caked with dust. His hands trembled as he offered an expired insurance card. Maya called out, "Dr. Cole, we need a cardiac consult, now possible congenital failure." Adrian stepped forward, eyes scanning the chart. "No insurance, no referral, no admit record." "Sir, she's coding, then stabilize and transfer to county." Adrian snapped. "This is St. Andrew's, not a shelter." Maya froze. The monitor beeped faster. "Should die if we move her. Then document her refusal of transfer." Adrian said coolly, "We're not a free clinic." The man fell to his knees. "Doctor, please, I'll pay, just not today. I worked construction till my back gave out. She's a good girl. She just needs help." Adrian's face hardened. "Sir, we all need help, but medicine costs money." Security guards hesitated nearby. Maya whispered, "Dr. Cole, let me." "Enough," he said. "This conversation is over." When the guards reached for the man's arm, he staggered. His chest tightened, and within seconds, he collapsed beside his daughter. Maya shouted, "He's having a cardiac arrest." Adrian glanced at the monitor. Instinct twitched in his hand. He could save him. He had the skill. But instead, he said flatly, "He's not our patient." Maya's voice broke. "He's a human being." "Okay." The words hung in the sterile air like static. "Okay." The girl cried out for her father as the beeping flattened into a single note. Adrian turned away, his badge glinting under the surgical lights, clean, untouched, untarnished. Outside, sirens wailed as the public ambulance took them away. Inside, Adrian signed another chart. Another day, another life, detached. That night, when the halls quieted and the city lights flickered against the glass, Maya sat alone in the staff lounge, her eyes red. How can someone who saves hearts have none of his own? She whispered. Down the corridor, Adrian stood before a mirror, adjusting his badge. He caught the light again, bright, perfect, blinding. He didn't see the small crack forming in the metal clasp. Night descended over St. Andrew's like a sheet of polished glass. The hospital's rhythm slowed to the hum of ventilators and the faint squeak of wheels on tile. Dr. Adrian Cole remained in his office, dictating surgical notes into his recorder, precise, mechanical, untouched by emotion. Case 1473 complete. CABG procedure successful. Estimated recovery optimal. He clicked the pen shut and leaned back, rubbing his temples. The silence was perfect, just how he liked it. Then his pager buzzed. Trauma alert, code red, multiple injuries. He sighed. Probably another drunk crash. He grabbed his coat, adjusted his badge, okay, and walked out with the calm arrogance of a man who believed he'd seen it all. The emergency room? Chaos met him at the entrance. Nurses shouting vitals, monitors screaming. Dr. Cole. Cole, Maya called, still on shift, sweat glistening on her forehead. Victim from a highway collision, crushed chest, arrhythmia, heavy internal bleeding. You're the only cardiac available. Where's Dr. Hughes? Adrian barked. Out sick. You're it. He stepped forward, snapping on gloves. Fine. Let's see the lucky one. They rolled the gurney toward him, the patient's face bloodied, unrecognizable. But something in the rough beard and calloused hands made Adrian pause. The nurse read the chart. Male, 50s, found unconscious on roadside. T-tag, Thomas Reed. Adrian's heart skipped a beat. What did you say? Thomas Reed. No next of kin listed, except daughter, Lily Reed. Still en route to county. Maya's eyes darted toward Adrian. She remembered the name. The man he'd refused hours ago. Adrian hesitated. Prep him for surgery, he said quietly. Doctor, you? Prep him, snapped. The team rushed. Monitors beeped in panic rhythms. As they cut away the blood-soaked shirt, a small military dog tag dangled around the man's neck, engraved and worn. Maya whispered, He's a veteran. Adrian swallowed, but forced his focus. Scalpel. The operation inside the surgical suite. Light poured down like interrogation lamps. Adrian's hands moved in instinctive precision. Incision, suction, clamp. But his breathing quickened. Every time the suction cleared blood, he saw that same face from the ER hours ago. Begging, pleading. He could almost hear the words echo through his mind. Please, she's all I have. Doctor, pressure's dropping. A nurse shouted. Adrian gritted his teeth. Vasopressin now. As he bent over the table, the clasp of his hospital badge caught against the metal rail, snapped loose, clattered to the floor, and slid under the table, out of sight. He didn't notice. For the first time in years, Dr. Cole was operating not for pride, but out of guilt. His voice trembled between commands. The monitor steadied. The bleeding slowed. His technique was flawless, but his eyes blurred with something unfamiliar. Remorse. After 3 hours, the team stepped back. Vitals stable, the anesthetist said. He'll live. Maya asked softly. If he makes the next 48 hours, Adrian murmured, removing his gloves. He stared at the man on the table, still, pale, fragile. A quiet storm built behind Adrian's practiced calm. Doctor, Maya said, you saved him. No, Adrian replied, voice cracking slightly. I'm just trying to undo what I did. The badge when the room cleared. Maya bent to clean the floor. Something metal glinted beneath the table. She picked it up, Adrian's badge. The gold, now smeared with blood. She turned it over in her hand. The engraved name, Dr. Adrian Cole, chief surgeon, was half obscured by red streaks. She looked toward the doctor, standing alone behind the glass, staring at the man whose life he'd nearly denied. Maya walked over quietly and placed the badge on the counter beside him. "You've dropped this," she said. He didn't answer. "Maybe," she continued softly. "It fell for a reason." He looked at her, not with arrogance this time, but confusion, as if hearing a language he'd forgotten. The quiet corridor. Hours later, the hospital hall was still. Adrian sat in the staff's lounge, badge lying on the table before him. He rubbed the dried blood from its edges, staring at his own name. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like an achievement. It felt like a verdict. His mind drifted to the man's weathered hands, the dog tag, the faint scar across his wrist. Something about it sparked a flicker of memory. A disaster site years ago. A volunteer paramedic hauling wounded civilians while young Dr. Cole stitched through exhaustion. A man with the same eyes. No, it couldn't be. He stood suddenly, breathing hard. "Get me everything you can on the patient in OR 3, he told the night clerk. The nurse looked surprised. "You mean Mr. Reed?" "Yes, everything. His records, his address, anything you can find." As he walked away, his reflection caught in the glass door. White coat, immaculate, but badge missing from his chest. For the first time, he looked incomplete. Morning broke over St. Andrews in a pale wash of gold. The city outside was waking, but inside the hospital, fluorescent lights still ruled the day. Dr. Adrian Cole stood at the foot of room 312, coffee untouched, eyes fixed on the still figure inside. Thomas Reed lay motionless beneath a tangle of wires and monitors. His chest rose and fell in shallow rhythm, machines doing what his body could not. The sound of each beep pressed against Adrian's conscience like a metronome of guilt. He had operated all night, and now the man he'd once turned away was fighting for his life under his care. How many others had I refused? He thought. How many never came back? Behind him, Nurse Maya entered quietly, a clipboard in hand. "Vitals steady," she said softly. He made it through the night. Adrian nodded, eyes still on the patient. His daughter at county hospital. She's stable. Social workers bringing her here today. He exhaled. Good. Maya hesitated, then added, "I looked into him. Dr. Thomas Reed isn't just anyone. He used to be a paramedic, 15 years of service, disaster relief, wildfires, hurricanes. He was decorated twice. Lost his wife during the flood mission in Louisiana. After that, things went downhill. Medical debt. Lost his job. But he kept volunteering." The words sank like weights into Adrian's chest. "A paramedic," he whispered. "Yes," Maya said. "He saved people his whole life till he came here." Silence filled the room. Outside, sunlight crept across the polished floor. sliding toward the edge of Adrian's discarded badge lying on the counter. The records room. Later that afternoon, Adrian descended into the hospital archives, a cold maze of cabinets and dust. The hum of fluorescent lights echoed as he rifled through old digital logs, searching for any mention of Thomas Reed on an old volunteer roster from 15 years ago. He found it. Field Medic Thomas Reed, Paramedic Unit Number 47, partnered with resident Dr. Adrian Cole. He froze. A grainy black and white photo was attached. A younger version of himself standing beside a man with the same steady eyes as the patient upstairs, both covered in ash and dirt, smiling after saving earthquake victims. His throat tightened. The past collided with the present. He remembered the voice, now calm, patient, guiding him through his first disaster triage. Listen, Cole, when they're bleeding, don't look at the wound first. Look at the eyes. They'll tell you if they're giving up. If your hands can't heal what your heart doesn't see. That was Thomas Reed. Adrian sank onto a stool, the photo trembling in his hands. He had just condemned the man who once taught him what it meant to heal. A lesson remembered. That evening, Maya found him still there, the photos spread across the table. You knew him? She asked. Adrian nodded slowly. He was my mentor during residency. Not officially just a paramedic assigned to the volunteer unit, okay? But he taught me more about medicine than any professor. He stared at the picture again. He once carried a pregnant woman 6 miles through floodwater because no ambulance could reach her. He didn't care about titles or money. He used to say, compassion is the first medicine. Maya's eyes softened. What happened to you, doctor? He gave a broken laugh. I started believing success meant saving hearts on the table, not the ones outside it. For a long moment, they sat in silence. Then Maya set the blood-stained badge on the desk in front of him. Maybe it's time you earn it back. He stared at his name glinting faintly beneath dried crimson. Maybe, he whispered. The visit, 2 days later, the hospital corridors filled with the sound of small footsteps. A young girl, her arm bandaged, entered room 312, clutching a shoebox. Her hair was tangled, eyes weary but bright. Maya guided her in. Dr. Cole, this is Lily Reed. Adrian stood awkwardly, guilt slicing through him. Lily, your father's stable. He'll wake up soon. The girl nodded, then looked at him closely. You're the doctor who helped him? Adrian hesitated. Yes, I'm one of them. She smiled faintly. He told me once about a doctor who worked with him during a big earthquake. Said he'd never seen anyone try so hard to save strangers. She opened the box and pulled out a photograph, faded, creased, familiar. It was the same picture Adrian had found in the records room. Her father and himself standing side by side. He kept this all these years, Lily said. Said that doctor would become someone great, someone who'd change lives. Tears welled in Adrian's eyes. He couldn't speak. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. He already has, she whispered. It's a promise that night. The storm inside Adrian broke. He stood at the hospital window, watching city lights blur through tears. He thought of the hundreds of patients he'd passed over for being not worth the cost. faces he'd erased with policy. In his hand, he held his badge. He turned it over once more and spoke quietly to the reflection in the glass. "You built walls with this, Adrian. It's time to turn it into a bridge." He placed the badge on his desk next to the photograph and picked up his phone. "Boardroom," he said into the receiver. "First thing tomorrow, I'm proposing a change in our charity admissions policy." His voice was calm, resolute, stripped of arrogance. Aside, dawn began to rise. The hospital was quiet that morning. It's a kind of stillness that made every sound echo. Dr. Adrian Cole stood outside room 312, coffee untouched in his hand. He'd been standing there for hours, staring through the glass at the man whose pulse monitor now climbed and dipped with the faint rhythm of recovery. Thomas Reed had made it through the critical hours. His fingers twitched. Maya appeared beside him. "Doctor, he's responding to touch now. He might wake up soon." Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. "He deserves to." They entered the room together. Air smelled faintly of antiseptic and hope. Machines beeped in soft harmony. Thomas stirred, eyelids fluttering like a man surfacing from years of sleep. "Mr. Reed," Maya said gently, "you're safe. You're at St. Andrews." His voice rasped. "My daughter, Lily." "She's fine," Adrian said, stepping closer. "She's here, waiting for you." Thomas turned toward the sound of that voice, his cloudy eyes sharpening. "I know that voice," he murmured. "Cole." Adrian froze. "It's me," he said softly. "Dr. Adrian Cole. You remember?" Thomas gave a faint, exhausted smile. "You were the kid who froze during the flood mission. Nearly fainted at the sight of blood. Had to drag you back to your patient." Maya watched as the surgeon, usually a statue of composure, laughed through tears. "You saved my first life for me," Adrian said. "You were scared," Thomas whispered. "That's human. What mattered is you came back. I told you then, a doctor's badge isn't a crown, it's a reminder." Adrian's breath hitched. Those same words had haunted his dreams all week. He pulled his badge from his pocket, its gold now dulled, its clasp cracked. "I forgot that," he said. "For years." "Then maybe now you'll remember," Thomas said weakly, smiling. A daughter's return, Lily burst into the room, eyes wide, tears already falling. "Daddy." Thomas reached out, his trembling hand finding hers. Adrian stepped back, giving them space. "You did good, sweetheart," he whispered to her. "I told you not to worry." "You scared me," she said, crying. Adrian turned toward the window, his throat tightening. Maya joined him quietly. "You could have let him die," she said. "I did let him once," he answered. "But somehow I was given a second chance." The confrontation later that afternoon, Adrian entered the hospital boardroom. The long glass table reflected the faces of department heads, suits polished, voices cold. "Cole, what's this about changing the admission policy?" asked Dr. Hughes, returning from leave. Adrian stood tall. "From today forward, no patient is to be refused emergency treatment based on insurance status. We're a hospital, not a business front." "That's unrealistic," Hughes scoffed. "We'd go bankrupt." "Then we'll raise funds." Adrian shot back, cut luxury renovations, sponsorships, gala dinners, whatever it takes. You're letting one incident cloud your judgment. One incident. Adrian's voice cracked. That incident is a man named Thomas Reed, a man who saved lives when we were still learning what life meant. I refused him once, again. The room fell silent. No one spoke for a long minute. Then, slowly, the hospital director, an older woman who had watched the entire exchange, nodded. "Make your proposal," she said. "Let's hear it." For the first time in years, Adrian felt purpose instead of pride. The wall of healing. A week later, sunlight streamed through the hospital atrium. Visitors stopped near a new plaque mounted beside the ER entrance. The inscription read, "Reed Compassion Program, dedicated to those who serve without recognition and heal without reward." Underneath hung two photos, one of a young paramedic in uniform, the other of Dr. Adrian Cole beside him in the aftermath of the earthquake mission. Thomas Reed sat in a wheelchair before it, Lily at his side. His skin still pale, but his smile alive. Adrian approached quietly. "They approved it," he said. "Free emergency care for those who can't afford it. It starts today." "I knew you'd remember who you were," Thomas replied. "You gave me that chance," Adrian said. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his broken badge. Crack across his engraved name caught the sunlight. He knelt beside Thomas's chair and pressed it into the man's palm. "You keep it," he said. "It fell when I operated on you. I don't need it anymore." "You sure?" Thomas asked. "Yeah," Adrian said, smiling through tears. "Now I know what it really means." Thomas closed his hand around it. "Then let it remind you never to forget again." A new beginning evening descended. The halls of St. Andrew's glowed, softer, now less sterile, more human. Adrian walked through the ER and noticed something new. Volunteers helping the poor fill out forms. Nurses greeting patients with warmth. Maya smiling as she handed a sandwich to a homeless man waiting for stitches. He stopped at the entrance, looking at the plaque one last time. Outside, he saw Thomas and Lily leaving the building, walking into the fading orange light of dusk. Adrian whispered, almost to himself, "You saved me twice, Thomas. Once when I was young, okay? And once when I was lost." The glass doors slid closed, reflecting his image beside the plaque. For the first time, he looked at peace. A month later, dawn painted the city in soft amber light. The once gleaming towers of St. Andrew's reflected gold as Dr. Adrian Cole stepped out of a cab and stared across the street at a building still wrapped in scaffolding. The banner over its doors read, "It's the Reed Center for Compassionate Medicine, free cardiac care for all." The name alone sent a tremor through his chest. He'd used his personal savings and every ounce of reputation to build it. Where his old badge once hung on his coat, there was now only the faint outline of its imprint, like a scar that no longer hurt. Inside, volunteers painted walls the color of sunrise. Second-hand equipment gleamed beneath fresh polish. The scent of new plaster mingled with coffee and possibility. Maya appeared beside him, clipboard in hand. "We're ready, Dr. Cole," she said. "No," he replied softly. Just Adrian. Titled Stay at St. Andrews. They laughed. The sound felt human again. Opening day, patients began trickling in. Elderly veterans, single mothers, factory workers' faces, long ignored by hospitals like the one he once ruled. Adrian moved among them without pretense. He checked pulses, changed bandages, offered water. Keach, thank you, landed on him like absolution. Maya whispered, I haven't seen you smile like this since the day I met you, because I finally remember why I started, he said. To heal, not to calculate. At noon, a quiet commotion filled the entrance. Thomas Reed rolled through the door in his wheelchair, Lily pushing from behind. His face was stronger now, eyes clear. Round his neck, the same worn military tag rested against his chest. Thought I'd see how my name looks on a building, he joked. Adrian grinned. It suits you. They wheeled to the dedication wall, where sunlight hit two framed items. The plaque from St. Andrews that had once hung near the ER, and beneath it, the broken badge, sealed in glass, its crack still visible. The inscription below read, This badge fell once so that compassion could rise. A hush spread through the small crowd. Adrian turned toward them. When I wore that badge, he began, I thought it made me important. But a man who carried no title reminded me that saving a life is not a transaction, it's a promise. Center exists because of him, and for everyone he ever helped. Applause filled the hall. Gentle, reverent. Thomas wiped a tear, half laughing. Careful, doctor. You're starting to sound like me. Maybe I finally learned from the best, Adrian replied. The day faded into quiet gratitude. The last patients left, smiling, bandages clean, prescriptions in hand. Volunteers stacked chairs, humming. Adrian stood alone in the lobby. Through the glass doors, the city glowed in twilight. He traced the words on the plaque with his fingertips, feeling the groove of his own name beside Thomas's. Maya approached with 2 cups of coffee. We did good today, she said. We did right today, he corrected. They watched as Lily placed a small bouquet of wildflowers under the badge display. Dad says this is where hearts come to get fixed, she told them. Adrian knelt beside her. He's right. Not just hearts that beat, but hearts that forget how to feel. Weeks passed. News outlets covered the Reed Center's work for her. Patients volunteering, doctors donating hours. St. Andrews adopted Adrian's new policy permanently. One afternoon, Thomas entered Adrian's office carrying an envelope. A little something for my daughter, he said. Inside was a hand-drawn picture, a doctor without a badge, holding a heart made of light. Beneath it, the child had written, The man who heals without being asked. Adrian's voice trembled. She shouldn't have. She wanted you to remember that the badge wasn't what made you special, Thomas said. Then I'll keep it forever, Adrian replied. They sat in silence, a moment two men joined by one truth. Compassion had cost them both, yet it gave them everything. Sunset bathed the city in gold. Adrian locked the clinic's doors for the night and stepped outside. Across the street, the glass facade of St. Andrews reflected the last blaze of day. For the first time, he didn't feel resentment, only peace. He walked to a small park bench where Thomas waited, Kane beside him. They watch people pass, nurses heading home, children chasing pigeons, sirens in the distance. Funny thing, Thomas said, all these years I thought I was saving strangers. Turns out, one of them came back for me. Adrian smiled. You didn't just save me, Thomas. You reminded me what medicine means. Thomas looked skyward. Maybe that's why the badge fell. Yeah, Adrian whispered, eyes glistening, so I could finally see the man underneath it. They sat in silence as the streetlights flickered on. The city buzzed around them, alive and indifferent, yet somehow gentler now. Adrian reached into his pocket, pulled out a stethoscope, and placed it gently over his own chest. Still beating, he said softly. Thomas chuckled. Told you, you've got a good heart, after all. The camera of imagination pulls back to figures framed by sunset. A glint of gold in the clinic window, in the echo of a line that would stay with viewers long after the screen fades to black when the badge falls. The heart rises, fade out.